So we just concluded the power-packed CEO panel on changing people paradigm in the current times. And in this session, we're going to discuss another extension of that subject. Welcome everybody to the workshop on redefining the employee experience from HCM to HXM in Hybrid 2.0 by Jason Averbook, who is an author and a celebrated industry analyst on workforce experience. Jason, welcome to SAP HR Connect 2021. We're thrilled to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
Over to you, Jason.
Thanks so much. So good afternoon, good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Really, really appreciate it. And so excited to be part of this great event. What I want to talk about today is this discussion of HR in what we call the now of work. It's past time to talk about the future of work, and it's time that we talk about, and only time that we truly talk about, the now of work. Now, when we talk about the now of work, as said, my name is Jason Averbook, CEO and co-founder of Leapgen. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about how the last couple years, the last 2 years, has changed the world of work forever. Forever. And when we say forever, and we think about forever, what we mean is that the concept of how people work, where they work, how they work, why they work, has changed drastically. And a big question for us all, and for you, is have you changed? We're going to talk about this concept of the shift from human capital management to human experience management, and really talk about the priorities that organizations have when it comes to experience. And are you thinking about experience in the right way? So really quickly, the work that we do at Leapgen is working with organizations around the world in helping them think about this concept of transformation. Transformation is a word that people bring up a lot, but not a lot of people understand what it means. We take the root trans, it means radical change. We take formation, in this particular case, it's of how we do things. In this case, how we work, a radical change in how we work. And in the world we've lived in here, there's two types of trans. There's technology transitions, which is a shift from one technology to another, and there's true transformations, shifts in how work happens. And when we do that, there's really 3 different steps we take to do that. So how do you get to this model of hybrid 2.0? How do you do it? It's really made up of 3 key steps, 3 key components. Now, that doesn't mean you complete them in 3 days or 3 minutes. But what it does mean is that we must attack this concept of hybrid 2.0 in a very strategic and systemic way. It starts with developing a strategy, a digital HR, digital people strategy. And if I was there in person with you, I would ask you all to raise your hands. I hope you all can pretend for a second and ask yourself, do you have a digital people strategy? A digital people strategy isn't an HR technology strategy. And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. The second thing is to really understand that after we have a strategy and we're ready to move with that strategy, what we do is we deploy that strategy. Deploying a strategy is a very large effort. It includes program, it includes change, it includes adaptation or unlearning, it involves organizational models, and it involves and can involve the implementation of technology. Now notice, implementation is part of deployment. Implementation is part of deployment. Most organizations are really good at implementation, and most organizations are really bad at deployment. It's where a lot of the strategy falls down. And then once I deploy that strategy, I must think about how do I sustain that strategy? Or how do I continue to get value from it? That's where the ROI comes into play. Run, optimize, and innovate. So those are the three phases: strategy, deploy, and run, or run, optimize, innovate, ROI. I hope that makes sense. If you start at implementation, you're not going to meet the mark. If you have a strategy without deployment, you're not going to hit the mark. If you forget the value part, keep sustaining, you're not going to hit the mark. So when we think about that, we think about the world we live in today. As we develop strategies, which, by the way, strategies are really hard today. Why? Because they change. We used to be at a point where we could take a strategy and say, here's my 5-year strategy. We used to be at a point where we could say, here's my 3-year strategy. It's really hard today in the world in 2021 to say, here's my 1-year strategy. But we have to be able to create agile strategies that can shift, strategies that can flex, strategies that can contract based on the things that are going on around us. I mean, we have a sputtering recovery when it comes to COVID. We have a labor market that's stranger than anything we've seen in the past. We have tapped out workers. We have poverty. We have a concept of a great resignation. All of these things on this particular graph, if you would have asked me in February of 2020 if they'd be on this slide, it would be hard to imagine. And that's a really short period of time. But in the world of human experience management, not human capital management, but human experience management, we must be listening. We must be listening to signals. We must be listening to humans and reacting with our strategies intact. We have workers that are burnt out. We have workers that feel betrayed. How do we respond? How do we respond? We respond by going to our core, by going to the core of what makes us, which is human. We're human outside of work. We're human inside of work. The way that we think about recovery is by focusing on being human-centered. That's period, end of story. Being human-centered. Because people, cliche, are our most important asset. But in this particular case, people and how we treat people, how we make people feel, is what's going to allow us to get through this changing time that we live in today. So what are some of these impacts? We must think about systems and tools to drive efficacy. We must realize that hybrid work is not just a thing that's here now. It's going to be here forever. It should have been here 20 years ago, since Y2K. We must think about how do we have optimism at the same time as we have uncertainty, which is, I like to say, how do we play offense and defense at the same time? So right now, HR has the biggest opportunity, the largest opportunity that we've ever had to shape the now of work. I like to say we're all actors in a movie, and it's the year 2021. And when we go back and watch the movie in 2025, what will we have done? Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella said an amazing quote, and it's true. We saw 2 years of digital transformation happen in 2 months. The question for you is that the case in your HR function? Ask yourself, is that the case in your HR function? Digital transformation touches everything from marketing to sales to everything we do in human resources. So when we say the shift from human capital to human experience management, what we're talking about simply that, transformation. Every organization in the world, every HR organization in the world must be digitally transforming today. Must be. When we talk about digital, what do we mean? Because so many people get this wrong. Why do they get this wrong? And how do they get it wrong? They get it wrong by thinking about digital equaling technology. Digital does not equal technology. Technology is a component of digital. So in the year 2021, what's most important is that we focus first understanding the purpose of our organization. And how do we want to deliver? How do we want to serve with purpose? And we all know this. It's all documented. If it's not documented, we may have to search and talk to a few people. But we know our purpose. We know what the standards are of our organization when it comes to serving. But now what do? We, as HR leaders, need to put that into action as we digitally transform our function. And we do that by focusing on 4 key areas. First, making sure that our mindset and vision are clear, they're aligned to purpose. We think about the adaptation or unlearning that has to happen. And we think about the organization, the HR organization of the future, and how do we need to shape it and shift it right now, not in the future, right now. That's 35% of your digital success, is making sure that you have a clear, concise, understood, and agreed upon mindset and vision. A story with clear measures of success. What's a measure of success? What you're going to look back on and say, we accomplished something. In the technology space, we have a measure of success that I hate. It's called go live. I always say go live should be called go begin. Because once we're live with our technology, that's when we get to begin to realize the impact of our overall transformation. So in that mindset and vision section, it's crucial to understand what are our measures of success. Second, the shift from human capital management to human experience management is the shift from counting heads to making heads count. It's the shift from counting heads to making heads count. How do we do that? We do that by knowing our people. Not knowing what skills they have, not knowing where they went to school, but knowing what allows them to bring their best selves to work. The human side of them, the whole person side of them. And when I know them, I can design for them. When I understand them, I can design for them. Once I design for them, what do I design for them? I don't design HR processes for them. HR processes generate data for us. What I design for my workforce in the world of human experience management are journeys. Processes generate data, Journeys generate feeling. Experience is all about feeling. And then lastly, the technology fuels this. It fuels my vision. It fuels my connecting to people. It fuels the ability to have digital workflows and digitize journeys. The technology does that. But where do most people start? They start with the technology. They implement it. They go live, and all of a sudden they say, "Ugh, that's not what I thought it was going to do," or "That's not what we saw in the demo." Digital transformation is made up of everything you see on this screen right now. If you leave one of these out, the effectiveness of your overall technology won't be there. The effectiveness of your overall transformation won't be there. Ultimately, when we think about human experience management, what we need to do is we need to listen and act. We need to listen and act. We need to be able to listen to people. If I ask you today, "How are you?" and you say, "I'm not great," I need to act on it. I don't act on it once a year during an engagement survey. I act on it now. If I'm having a performance discussion with you, I don't do that once a year. If I'm doing an exit interview with you, I don't do that when you're exiting. I should be doing a stay interview. I need to do a better job of listening. And this is where the human side comes into play. For some reason, we're human outside of work, yet inside of work, we all of a sudden become inhuman. Things that we do every day, like ask "How are you?" we do once a year. Things like truly listening to people and understanding people inside of work we don't do. Think about how we leverage technology and ask yourself this simple question. It's 2021 outside of work. What year does it feel like inside of work when it comes to getting things done? They can't feel different. We're one human. That's the goal. That's the goal of human experience management and true transformation. It's the shift. It's the shift from a B2B focus. Now, what do I mean when I say B2B focus? I mean, when you think about all of these tools and technologies we've been working with forever, we put those in place to make us more efficient, to make us more effective as an HR function. That's B2B. When we want to make sure that our employees, our managers, our leaders have the tools that they need to be successful. Not successful to HR, successful to the organization, successful in the eyes of the people that they lead. I must shift from a B2B focus to a B2Me focus. What does that mean? I need to think about personalization. In order to think about personalization, what do I need to do? I need to know my people. We need to build workforce tools that don't just connect people, but build connection between people. Getting people connected at a conference like this over a computer screen, that's easy. Building connection with you when I'm 8,500 miles away from you, building connection with you when I can't reach out and shake your hand? Building connection with our employees and managers and leaders? That's the goal of human experience management, not just getting people connected to dumb transactions. Building connection between people. The way I need to do that is I need to think about this concept that we like to call hands, heads, and hearts. And there's a formula here that we use to define experience. And that formula is transaction plus interaction equals experience. If I just put a transaction out there, had you go through it and hit enter, is that an experience? Yeah, it is. But how does it make you feel? Not that great. The interaction that goes along with it. If I had a transaction out there and when you hit enter, the next thing it did is said people that did this transaction also did this. And by the way, John, because you did that, here are 3 other perks and benefits. Oh, and by the way, Bill, because you did that, here are 4 other people you should talk to about that. I'm enriching the transaction through interaction to create an experience. Does that make sense? Transactions alone do not create experiences. They're transactions, just what they're called. Transaction plus interaction is what creates experience. And the interaction is where trust is built. So keep that formula in mind. And at the same time you keep that in mind, think about those 3 body parts that are listed at the top of this screen: hands, heads, and hearts. Hands, heads, and hearts. This is a simple way to think about how we need to shift work as part of our digital transformation. It's a weird story that I came up with one night sitting in a bar in Singapore when someone asked me when machines were going to replace people. And I looked at them, I said, when are machines going to replace people? Machines are never going to replace people. Machines are going to change the way people work, change the way that people do things, but they're not going to replace people. So in thinking through that is where I came up with this concept of hands, heads, and hearts. What are machines good at? They're good at hands work. What we like to call RAD, repeatable, auditable, and documented work. That's what machines are good at. And that's where we should leverage technology to the nth degree. What are people good at? They're good at hearts work. They're good at building those connections. Now, can machines do that? There are going to be people on this webcast that I guarantee will say, machines can do it just as good as people. I don't believe that. They might be getting better. Artificial intelligence might be getting better, but it's not really artificial intelligence. And by the way, we don't want artificial humanity. We want real humanity. So if we build our function where machines are doing the transactional work, we can focus on the heart's work, the feeling work. And in the middle, the data that machines give us, we can use our heads to tell stories about that. So think about that: hands, heads, and hearts. And ask yourself, do you have your HR people focusing on the heads and hearts work? Or do you have your HR people focusing on the hands work? If your HR people are focusing on the hands work, I guarantee you they're not all in on the hearts work, which is what we sorely need in the world of human experience management. So when we think about digital, what we're talking about is we're talking about not eliminating the human element, we're talking about enhancing it. I hope this makes sense. And if there's questions, please put them in the chat. It's very, very important, very, very important that we realize that the goal of digital transformation is not to cut heads. And if it is to cut heads, it's to add other heads that focus on the humanity side. Very, very important. Work doesn't look the same. Period. And because work doesn't look the same, HR can't act the same. You guys, as someone who speaks all over the world every single day of my life, I struggle with this. I struggle with this slide a lot. If we all acknowledge that work has changed, workers have changed, businesses have changed, humanity is more important than ever, we have to be agile in fragile times, why would we do things the same? When everything else has changed, why would we say, oh, nope, that's the way we've always done it? This is our time. This is our time and our now of work. This is why on HR's wish list, if they could double their budget, they say they would allocate additional funding to employee experience. Number one, improving existing technology. Number two, by doing that, it's going to help the DEI world. It's going to help the upskilling world. It's going to help the coaching world. But finally, people are not thinking about HR technology as technology for HR. Forget the R. They're thinking about technology for humans. Workforce experience matters more than ever. Some of us are sitting at home with kids, dogs, cats, pets, whatever we have. Shoes on, shoes off, suits, ties. Some of us are in the office. Some of us aren't in the office. Doesn't matter. But all that said, we used to have two experiences. We used to have a physical experience, and then we used to have a digital experience or a technical experience. Today, we have one experience, and it's the workforce experience. It's the human experience. And it's where this concept of human experience management comes into play. But to achieve it, as I said earlier, we have to stop just implementing technology. I can't say this. I don't know how to say this in a more impassioned way. By just putting in technology, it does not change our function. By just putting in technology, it does not change the way we interact with our workforce. Technology enables the way we do that. Technology can help with it, but we have to stop putting so much weight on the technology alone. Technology without change is nothing. One of the things that we talk to organizations about, that we work with all the time, is that in order for people to adopt, the organization has to adapt. Adoption is driven by adaptation. But if we don't change the way we work, which isn't technology's job, the technology can't do what we spend all the money on to allow it to do. When we think about how do we meet people where they are, we talk about this concept of personas. If we're really going to talk about human experience management, we need to talk about humans, which means we think about the voice of the employee, the voice of the customer. Now, I hope you're all using personas today, but if you're not, I'm going to take just a few minutes to talk about them. And I hope you'll take something away from this. The way we used to, and many of us still, deploy technology and deploy digital is by doing it with one single spread. We say, guess what? You all get this. You all get this. And you know what? You're going to use it. It doesn't work. We have to meet people where they are with an empathetic lens to the work that they do and how they work. Here's an example of Hannah. This is a persona. I understand Hannah by listening to people like Hannah. What are the best ways to communicate with Hannah? What's the HR information she wants to access? What are her needs and expectations, her roadblocks? What are the steps she uses to find information? How does she adapt to change and learn? If I know Hannah, what can I do? I can deploy and message in a way to meet Hannah where she is and with what she needs. But if I don't know Hannah, who's an office employee, what do? I say, hey, go use this self-service module, Hannah. And Hannah's like, no. Oh, I have a better idea, Hannah. I'm going to deploy MVP, minimum viable product. It's not going to be great, but it's going to be minimum. You're going to use it. No, she's not. She's going to abandon. And once she abandons, she's going to call or she's going to email. And once she does that, guess what your people are doing? Hands work. We must take this whole person approach. There's a great question that just came in about 2 or 3 things that we can do to make this change, which I want to get to. So I want to leave a few minutes for that. But when we think about this whole person approach, there's a big opportunity we have right now in the COVID world that we live, which is not talking about return to work. We've all been working. We've been working harder than we've worked in a long time, maybe ever. And for the last 18, 19 months, we in HR and technology have been on the front lines. So don't talk about return to work. If you want to talk about return to the office because you think that's where I need to be, that's a physical component of the whole person approach. But what we have to realize when we design is that we also have to take into account the emotional side. How are you? The social side. How do you connect and build connection? The spiritual side. Are you continuing to reinforce the values and the culture of the organization? And then how do you continue to drive learning? That's the whole person approach, you guys. It's not just open up the office. Physical, where we work. Emotional, how we feel. Social, how we build connection. Spiritual, how we align to purpose. And intellectual, how we continue to grow. I hope this makes sense. But if we're truly designing for people, don't just design for the part of the person that comes to the office. Don't just call it return to work. Design for the whole person. So when we think about this, there's a great comment that Rupesh just made. It has to be part of the vision, which is missing in some. Rupesh, I would say the vision is missing in almost all. Another comment, sympathy and empathy are costly affairs nowadays. Sympathy and empathy are costly? They are costly, but they are required. They are required. Will vaccination be the passport for bigger opportunities in the short term? Vaccination will be, but you know what will be a bigger passport? Thinking differently. I'm not downplaying COVID and vaccinations, but I'm using this moment in time to give us the passport. Beautiful word, Rohit. Passport to reset, to rethink, and to reimagine, and to realize that the geographic lottery has been shattered. The next normal is probably no normal that we're used to. Growth is going to come. We have workers all over the world who are seeking different kinds of employers, and entrepreneurs are launching new companies. So all that being said, we have to be ready to play that. We have to stop just doing technology transitions and focusing on transformations, and realize that everything about the digital workplace, human experience management, is now HR's responsibility. So what do we deliver? We deliver experiences, not technologies. We deliver solutions, not toolkits. Enablement, checking in on people, not checking up on people. Enabling people, not monitoring people. We deliver people capabilities, not features. We don't call people users. And we think about what are our measurable outcomes that are needed for the business. So all that being said, we live in a world where change is up to you. Nothing will change unless you do. Our purpose as an organization needs to be understood. And as Preeti just said, sometimes we're running behind a trend without a holistic view to it. Yeah, oftentimes we're just running without tying to our purpose, without tying to our mindset, without understanding our people, without truly designing journeys that meet people where they are. And then we live in a magical time where we have the best technology ever. We have the best technology we've ever had. But we're underutilizing it by doing the same old thing with it. And one of the magical things in this shift from human capital management, counting people, to human experience management, making people count, is realizing that technology is a fuel. It's a fuel that will allow us to drive to what the new now of work is, your now of work. Thank you very much. I have time for a few questions that I'm going to take. In fact, I have 1 minute for questions. And the one big question that's come through is, what are 2 or 3 things we can do in HR to make this change? First of all, A, Make sure that adaptation is part of your HR DNA. Adaptation equals unlearning. B, realize that the way that we've set up HR in the past with centers of excellence that focus on strategy, policy, and delivery will not work any longer. If everyone owns their own delivery, we're never going to have a single experience. And then third, and probably most important of all, as an HR function, ask yourself this simple question: what do we want to be great at? Versus what is it okay to be performing at? What do we want to be great at versus what is it okay to be performing at? And double and triple down on those things that you and your leadership team decide that you know you want to be great at, which drives competitive edge for your function. I believe we're right at the time, so thank you so much. If you'd like copies of these slides, please send an email to the email address there, hello@leapgen.com. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll go back, way back to my first slide, so you have my name. All I do on LinkedIn is talk about this stuff. I don't talk about the food I eat or anything like that. I always love your comments. I always love questions. I always love feedback. Thank you very much. Humbled and honored to be here. Back over to you.
Jason, what a fantastic session. Not only did you give us food for thought, but you gave us a lot of food for action. Thank you for introducing us to the digital people strategy. Run, optimize, innovate, being human-centered, having a clear, concise measure of success, and more importantly, go begin. Thank you for a very, very insightful session. Thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to quickly rejuvenate. We're going to break for tea, coffee, but during the break, we have a very interesting quiz for all of you. So you can head over to our contest area and you can participate in our quick contest to win exciting rewards. The quiz will go live right now. And of course, on the other side of the break, we have the power panel discussion. You can join us in the next 10 minutes after the tea and coffee break to hear top CHROs on thriving in the vaccine economy through human experience. I'm going to see you on the other side of this short break.